Wizards of the Coast have just been given the monumental task of creating a brand new video game studio from scratch. The idea is that they will take Hasbro's existing properties and develop them into successful AAA video games. But I, for one, have a bad feeling about this.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. My friends, I hope the day finds you well because we have some truly amazing news to discuss. I never in a million years would expect that Wizards of the Coast would be selected to be put in charge of Hasbro's digital gaming. And if you had told me that it was going to go so far as them actually creating a brand new video game studio, I would have said you were out of your mind. But here we are. This is the actual reality. So there's a posting put online that gives a summary of the announcement. We're going to take a look at that, and then I'm going to tell you the reasons that this makes me very hesitant at the least. So on the screen, you can see right now it says, Hasbro's Wizards of the Coast division, previously a subsidiary, has opened up a new digital games division called New Raleigh-Durham Studio to develop AAA titles for PC and consoles based on Hasbro properties. This new division is led by game industry veterans from big companies such as WB Games, which made the Hitman series, Batman, Arkham series, and etc. As first announced during Hasbro's 2021 investor event, this new studio is currently aiming to produce games for Transformers, G.I. Joe, Micronauts, and Wotc. As the first project, this North Carolina-based company will tackle G.I. Joe as a third-person action-adventure game. The studio is now hiring for various positions such as art director, lead animator, lead game designer, and technical director. During a recent interview with Stifel Investment Bank, Wizards of the Coast CEO Chris Corks, gotta change that last name because his last name is definitely not YouTube friendly. He stated that Hasbro is aspiring to have a fully fledged in-house digital games division to cater to a demanding video game market. So, that is the blurb letting us know what's going on, and there is a lot crammed into this announcement. Now, on one hand, there is definitely potential for certain games to be developed that could be successful. Obviously, them starting out with G.I. Joe makes perfect sense to me. G.I. Joe is a great concept to turn into video games. Obviously, there have already been a bunch of G.I. Joe video games, but it's got a very straightforward premise, right? G.I. Joe versus Cobra, although I've heard they're like maybe changing G.I. Joe up a bit to be a little less American-centric and more like world-based, but either way, you've got a really simple concept, right? You've got good versus evil. The strong soldiers of good who will throw down the cowardly soldiers of evil. So that, as a video game concept, that makes sense to me. The idea of them turning Transformers into video games, yep, already been doing it. That makes sense. Transformers, again, has a very clear narrative, right? So that one makes sense to me as well. Micronauts, I have never heard of. So I literally don't know what that game is. But the last one on the list that was mentioned here is really a mind-blowing head scratcher. And that is Wotc. Okay, we've seen weird choices made by Hasbro in the past. If you're not familiar with this, prepare yourself. It's going to kind of blow your mind. But back in the day, Hasbro had the choice to pick one of its properties to build a movie around, okay? So we're talking Magic the Gathering, we're talking Dungeons and Dragons, although Dungeons and Dragons was something they put off to the side because they tried making Dungeons and Dragons movies, and thanks to terrible performances and questionable writing, you ended up with a huge mess. Although, a mess I do kind of recommend watching because Jeremy Irons, who is a fantastic actor, is amazingly cornball in the Dungeons and Dragons movie. Like, it has to be seen to be believed. But either way, the Dungeons and Dragons movies did miserably. So when Hasbro had the chance to pick another property, they didn't actually believe that Magic the Gathering could be turned into a proper movie because of Wizards of the Coast, essentially. Like, Wizards of the Coast did such a bad job with the Dungeons and Dragons movies that Hasbro went, you know what? Instead of making a Magic the Gathering movie, why don't we make a movie based on our Battleship game? That, if you didn't know that movie that came out called Battleship is literally based on the Hasbro plastic board and peg game, where you're like, G4, and you put the little red peg and you sunk my battleship. You know what I mean? Like, they literally turned that into a movie over Magic the Gathering. And now we have a scenario where the same company, they wouldn't even take their property to develop into a movie, are now going to be put in charge of making all these digital games, with the Ouija being the most outstandingly odd choice to me. Ouija boards are a really silly, goofy sort of, do you believe in the occult? Check it out. You can all just put your hands on this little triangle and it'll move around to different letters on the Ouija board, and you can contact ghosts from the other world. Like, Ouija boards are ridiculous. I believed in them for 1 second when I was a kid, because we had the Ouija boards and we're sitting there. It's like, spirits, give us a sign. Meanwhile, my dad's outside the room and can hear us. So he's just banging on the wall. I'm like, oh man, the spirits are real. Like, that's the level, right? Ouija boards are really just for kids to play around with, or maybe like Wiccan ladies with the little crystals in hands. Oh, I'm going to contact the spirit of my elder ancients. Either way, it's a ridiculous concept to try and develop into a AAA game, in my opinion. How are you supposed to even make that? Like, the idea is you have this physical object where you're communing with spirits in this world. If it's digital, what are the ghosts now talking to you through your computer? It's just like, hey, we got your dead mom's spirit here on the internet to talk to you. And it's like, Mom? And it's like, yes. And your mother will tell you that she loves you if you pay for our $2 DLC download of A Mother's Love. Otherwise, she's disappointed in you. So, you know what I mean? How do you even turn that into a AAA concept? I have a number of misgivings about this. One is that it's going to pull Wizards of the Coast's focus way further than it already is, right? They're already handling Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering and having a ton of problems with those. Production issues with the physical game. They're having issues with the digital game, which is a big red flag here. When you think about all the Magic the Gathering games that have been created, they almost all don't exist anymore. They almost all failed miserably. If you look at recent times, Magic Legends, the Diablo, like, you're literally already taking a Diablo concept, which is a successful concept, and Magic the Gathering, which is a successful concept. Like, you're literally taking two pictures of success and pouring them into a bucket of failure. How is that even possible, right? So you have Magic Legends failing miserably. You have multiple Magic mobile games that have just blipped in and out of existence. Absolute failures. The successes, you can count 2 games. MTGO, which is incredibly buggy, ugly, and old, and Arena, which is incredibly buggy as well, right? Like, they don't have a great track record with developing their own video games for themselves. So what on earth is making Hasbro turn around and say, let's make Wizards of the Coast the ones in charge of this? And I have a few theories. One is that Wizards of the Coast has successfully monetized its customer base to an absurd degree. Hasbro turned around and said to Wizards of the Coast, double your profits. And Wizards of the Coast went, yes, sir, and has been successfully doing it. They're pulling in a bunch of money. They're one of Hasbro's most successful divisions, and they already have a digital monetized setup in terms of Arena. I think from Hasbro's perspective, they don't really consider MTGO to be like a real genuine success. It's still pulling in money because they would have shut it down otherwise, but I don't think they really consider that a success. But the current president of Wizards of the Coast, whose name I'm not going to say again, he basically was brought on board to make Arena a reality. He was brought on board to digitally bring Magic into the current era. and he succeeded. And we've seen a number of different attempts with Arena to really try and monetize things in as many different ways as possible. And admittedly, when it comes to free-to-play games, Arena isn't as bad as it could be. There are a bunch of levels of greed like tiered in there, and they are still trying to extract as much money as they can from you, but I will give Arena credit for being a free-to-play game that you can actually free-to-play and not hit a brick wall, because I'm an Arena free-to-play player. But Arena does have a lot of bugs, and they already have the benefit that they're working on Magic and understand that game. Now they're going to take these outside properties and develop them. And on top of that, we're dealing with a scenario where Wizards of the Coast hasn't gone out, or Hasbro hasn't gone out, and purchased a successful video game studio that's already flowing and functioning. They're having Wizards of the Coast build this new studio from the ground up, which is where a lot of my misgivings come from. Because Wizards of the Coast has a particular corporate culture that doesn't lend itself well to the best end products. And by that I mean, Wizards of the Coast rests on its pedigree. We own Magic the Gathering. We create Magic the Gathering, the world's ultimate card game, right? And also Dungeons and Dragons. We create the best role-playing game that exists out there. So there are a whole bunch of people who are desperate to work for Wizards of the Coast. I would love to work on my favorite game. I would love to work on Dungeons and Dragons. I would love to work on Magic the Gathering. And we've seen that they capitalize on this. They essentially offer lower than the norm wages. So they pay less than other places would, because it's like, yo, you're lucky to get to work here. And that sort of mentality, that sort of elitist mentality even oozed into Arena, where originally when Arena was being discussed by the people in charge of developing it, they were talking about how it would be more expensive than other digital like card game similarities, simply because it was Magic. There was a premium attached to it. So Wizards of the Coast is used to being able to lean on the fact that it's like, hey, you're working on a really impressive dream project here, Magic or D&D. But with the video game studio, that's not the same case at all. It's like, what are you supposed to say? Hey, come on down, work for our prestigious new Raleigh-Durham Studio, which is a very, very generic name, which most likely, at least in my opinion, is meant to distance it from Wizards of the Coast. That way, if the whole thing fails 6, 8, 10 months down the line, they can just wrap it up, shut it down, and go, oh yeah, no, hopefully you won't even remember that this was a thing. It really does feel like a let's take one step back kind of scenario. Somebody didn't realize how close his green screen is to his foot. I just slammed my foot into it. Anyhow, you've got a scenario where they're probably not going to pay industry standard, right? And they're going to be having these people focus on AAA games. Although, you know, I guess to be real, the world of AAA games has gotten pretty terrible. AAA games to me used to be the premier experience, where it was like, yes, this is where you're going to get your money's worth. They're going to command high price tags, but you're also actually going to get your money's worth. We're selling you a $60 or $70 game. Here's your $60 or $70 worth of value. We've created DLC. It's literally a sprawling new continent with all kinds of stuff. Those are the old days. The new days of AAA games are, we've created new DLC. It's $25 for a pair of pants for your dude. You know what I mean? So I guess in the new era of jank games that are just shoved out completely unfinished, it's like, please pre-order our game. Maybe we'll finish it. Maybe we're going to Fallout 76 you. Who knows? In that kind of an environment, the current mentality of Wizards of the Coast, where it really does seem like they want to wring every dollar out of us they can, it does feel like that's the right mentality to be bringing to the AAA market, but I don't believe in their capability to deliver. Even with big titles like G.I. Joe's, Transformers, stuff like that, I genuinely don't believe that this video game studio is really going to stand a chance. And that's not a knock against the people who are going to work at the studio. It's a knock against Wizards of the Coast upper management, who like to meddle, who want to extract as much value as possible, pay the employees as little as possible, with no eye to the quality of the product that is being made. We see that Wizards of the Coast had zero problem churning out all kinds of games with other companies that quickly crashed and burned, and those were at least already established companies. Now Wizards of the Coast is going to build this from the ground up, which ultimately is probably going to be more expensive. You may think on paper, hey, instead of buying a pre-existing studio, it'd be cheaper if we hire these people. But then how much experience do these people have? Have they been working together? Like, to me, it just seems like snagging up a pre-existing studio would probably have been a safer bet in terms of actually being able to create worthwhile games. So ultimately, to me, my main concerns are this is going to pull Wizards of the Coast focus even further for the company. Who knows how much money they're being given for this project versus how many resources they're going to need to redirect, because I still strongly believe that when Arena was being developed, resources were taken away from Magic the Gathering in other ways in terms of things like card quality. That's why we had really poor card quality for a long period of time. I think it's because they cut costs there so they have money for Arena. And now if you look at things, it's pretty much established that Magic players will buy almost anything based on whatever quality. So what incentive do they have to continue to improve Magic quality versus taking money they could have used for that and going, you know what, let's put it into this new division. Like, it's not a new division, it's a part of the Wizards of the Coast division. But either way, as the president of the company, if Hasbro's like, we're giving you this new project, that's probably going to be your main focus. So you're going to pull your resources over to that. So I really do expect this is going to cause already existing products, Dungeons & Dragons, Magic the Gathering, to suffer, and ultimately will lead to video games that weren't worth making. I know it may sound pessimistic, but I'm just looking at what, to me, is the reality of this company. Now, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm going to leave a link to a new fun video over on my other channel. Don't show it to your kids, I'll tell you that right now. Thanks for coming by, everybody. Big shout out to my patrons. They're the best people on the planet. And I will see you all, my friends, next time.